All right.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back, everybody. We got a special guest this Friday evening. This is Darren. Darren is someone who I met at a local gym about 2 months ago. And one of the things that stuck out to me about Darren is that even though I didn't really talk to him and I just saw him in passing, he always had a smile on his face. You could always see the positive energy just like bouncing off. It was like a magic ray of sunshine was always behind Darren, shining throughout the gym. So if I ever wanted to get some really good lighting and see like my triceps or anything, I just get close to Darren because his light was shining that way, and I could look in the mirror. But tonight we just really want to hear where Darren came from, see his upbringing, and learn about that. So, Darren, like, if you want to share kind of what you're currently doing, and then your early childhood, and what brought you to this great mindset, like, we'd love to hear it, man.
Yes. Hi, guys. Welcome. I'm Darren, of course. Thanks for the lovely introduction, Chad, and nice to meet you, Jake.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Um, yeah. First and foremost, guys, I am from the small island called Barbados.
Mm.
It's in the Caribbean. Most of you probably only know about Rihanna and associate Barbados with Rihanna, the entertainer. So if you ever wanted to know where Rihanna was from, or if you didn't know before, it's from where I'm from, little Barbados, the most easterly Caribbean country. And my journey, actually, what brought me to the United States of America is the gift of track and field. I was an outstanding athlete. And quickly, as I ascended up the ranks, the University of Missouri took a gamble on me, I guess, so to speak, and recruited me. And so I went to school, in, of course, in the Midwest, the school known as Mizzou, right? The big school in Missouri. And I excelled there. Did through the undergrad program. I got my degree, and then I went on, and then I did my master's degree in finance. And then right after I graduated, after my master's, my MBA, I moved here to South Florida. That would have been 2011. And after that, I transitioned then from track and field, said bye bye to track and field, and I decided within a year I wanted to compete in bodybuilding. I had been an athlete my whole life, and not being able to do track and field anymore, I kind of had a void, like any other athlete. And I wasn't quite sure initially if bodybuilding would be for me. But I had always liked the feeling of going into the gym and lifting weights. And so that's how my journey into bodybuilding really began. Just kind
And
of, yeah.
when you were doing track and field, like I mean, you're big. What events were you doing in track and field? Were you fast or?
Well, it's funny you say that because as a junior, I was one of the fastest juniors in the islands. But when later on in my development, I realized I had the ability to jump. So I actually was recruited for high jump, and I ended up doing triple jump. So I'm very blessed to be a four-time state champion and two-time All-American in the jumps.
Well,
Um, that went pretty well for me. But I was a jumper. I was a high jumper, believe it or not. Yeah.
And has Barbados ever like went to the Olympics, or was that something you ever pursued?
Well, I was only good enough to be on the outside of what you call the Olympic B qualifying standards. So I was a great jumper in terms of the collegiate ranks,
mm,
but on that particular level of professional, I was just outside the tiers that I would have had to have met the qualifications. And but to your original question, Barbados has had Olympic athletes, just not a jumper.
mm.
Yeah, she had some. Yeah, we had a female long jumper, but no high jumper ever in the history of Barbados as
Really?
representative. Yeah.
Well, Jamaica never had a bobsled team, and then they got one, right?
It's true. It's very true. And I think anything's possible, right?
So, like growing up in Barbados, what was that like? Like, I guess I've never been there, unless me and you went there on a cruise that we don't remember,
No,
Jake. No,
no,
I
not
don't
to
think we did.
Barbados.
Yeah.
No.
What was that like? What type? How big's the country? Like,
Right. Yeah. Great question. So Barbados is 166 square miles.
Oh wow.
And Fort Lauderdale is bigger than Barbados, right? It's very, very small island, and it's the most easterly Caribbean island. And so you have to pass Puerto Rico, you head down the chain of the islands, and right above Trinidad, almost right. next to a country called St. Vincent and the Grenadines. There lies Barbados. So it's so east of the United States. Not many people know of it. But growing up in Barbados, we are very similar. If you combine Jamaica and the Bahamas, you have Barbados, right? Very similar weather, very similar foods, very obviously the people, the camaraderie, the warmth. So growing up in Barbados was actually pretty amazing. And this is from some person. I'm a bit complex because I was actually born in England, and
Oh, wow.
my parents met in England, and when I was 7 years old, migrated to Barbados. So yeah, I know. It's so I was raised in Barbados, and it is they have a strong educational system, and their faith is strong. 85% of Barbadians have some kind of Christian background. So the faith is strong there, and the culture is also strong West Indian culture.
And then in terms of like the main manufacturer jobs, like what do jobs look like? Is it mainly tourism, or is it a wealthy country?
Yeah, I mean, Barbados has one of the strongest GDPs in on that side of the world, right? It's very stable economy. In past years, we relied a lot on sugarcane as our main um, export that brought a lot of money, and tourism. Of late, because of where we are geographically, we're not doing as well in tourism as we would like to. But one thing Barbados strives on is a very, very strong government. We have a prime minister, a female prime minister called Maya Motley, and she does an amazing job in bringing in a lot of foreign exchange and generating jobs within the island. We're a self-service island. We don't rely a lot on outsourcing, so people have jobs because we rely so much on our people. So in the tourism sector, we strive a lot. Hotels, um, obviously taxis, businesses, they do very, very well in Barbados. Banking is strong in Barbados as well. But primarily tourism is the main money earning when it comes to, coming into Barbados, really.
And like, do you know what caused your parents to go from England to Barbados?
Well, my dad was in the military in the Royal British Air Force. My mom was a midwife at the time, and she delivered babies. They met in England, and um, I guess they decided that they wanted their kids to be raised, me and my two brothers, with a strong Christian faith and the discipline that is known in the Caribbean is a very disciplined place. Our educational system is tailored um, to feed our young minds so that our literacy rate continues to be high. So those who survive the educational system in Barbados typically at the end of it come out to be very strong men and strong women, and they wanted that for us, for our future. So that
And one of
encouraged
the
them to
interesting
migrate.
things you
Mhm.
mentioned is that Barbados is a very strong Christian country, but the Caribbean specifically can get pretty, I would say, weird in terms
Mhm.
of spiritual diversity. I mean, you're talking
Absolutely.
about pirates and just if I think about Cuba and some of the people that I've seen here in South Florida, like some of the things in their houses and the things that they stand up, like how is that like that throughout the Caribbean? Caribbean, is Barbados very specific and unique in being a Christian island?
Um, Not specifically to Barbados, but on that side of the Caribbean, the West Indies, on that particular side is very strong Christian faith. What you have to realize is that with pirates and those type of issues, every Caribbean island was exposed to that at some point. As a matter of fact, you guys ever heard of Pirates of the Caribbean?
The
A large
movie. Yeah.
movie. So a large part of Pirates of the Caribbean was shot on our sister island called St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And that is how really things happen in that part of the world. But with the development of the Caribbean islands, Um, what you saw was with a strong government, those things slowly were phased out. But what remained throughout decades was the Christian values. And some Caribbean islands did a better job at making it mandatory for kids to experience that. And they made it, they prioritized that in the system. And other Caribbean islands have not. So it all depends. It varies throughout the Caribbean. You go to some Caribbean, just to name one, if I had to think about a Caribbean island off the top of my head, it would be Haiti, right? Haiti is known to have um, a faith outside of Christianity and voodoo and that type of stuff, because that the heavy Christian influence wasn't really prioritized in Haiti throughout the Haitian nation.
Hmm.
But in Barbados, it's different because many years ago, the governments made it a priority to make sure we had a strong education and a good upbringing. And you can't have a good upbringing without our Savior and the involvement of Jesus Christ in our lives. And that was taught to us from a very young age. And it was also supported in the household with our parents.
Hmm.
So it was an ongoing process that pays dividends today, but it started many years ago.
Hmm.
Many years ago.
And when you talk about the education, I'm assuming you're talking about public education, or were you guys going to like private schools?
So in Barbados, you have 20 plus public schools, and you have a very small percentage of private schools. Our public school system is so strong that anybody who chooses to go to private, it would just be a personal choice of theirs. But our public schools are very strong. Our educators come from very good backgrounds, and they have years and years of experience in both Caribbean history and Barbadian history. So they pass on that knowledge in a system that's very well orchestrated by our government, so that we're all in line with the history of our Caribbean brothers and sisters, and as well, which is important, the history of our own country, which allows us to carry on our trades and the norms and the morals and those type of things within the country, so that when we step out of that country, we don't conform to another society because we have such a strong foundation.
Hmm.
And it includes
And
Christ. Mhm.
when it's an island, I guess, like, what's the population like? Did you know Rihanna?
Yes, I mean, Barbados is only on average 270,000 people, and that may seem like a lot, but that really, in terms of a population, that's a
Mhm.
very small population. We're divided into 12 what you call parishes on 166 square miles. So unless you stay in your house
Hmm.
every day, all day, you pretty much know everyone. It's very small, very
Hmm.
intimate island. So, I don't think anybody you ever meet from Barbados wouldn't know who Rihanna is. Or once she's in the island, would not have ran into her. I've seen her several times in Barbados.
Hmm.
Yeah, several times.
So that's interesting. So Jake and I are from Michigan, and our
Okay.
town is 11,000 people. And so every time you go to the grocery store, like, everybody there. So and when you
Yeah.
say 270,000, like, man, that's still a lot of people. Like, it would take a while, but I can see what you're saying. Like, okay, you're gonna run into her, or she's gonna see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But imagine that even though you guys think about it this way, you said the population is 11,000, right? And I guarantee you the state Michigan is bigger than Barbados. So
Hmm.
even though the population may be bigger than Michigan's population, the space, the confinement in which we operate is so much smaller
Hmm.
that interactions are are more likely than if you were spread out. So I think if you put 270,000 people in a large country, the chances of the interactions being intimate are less.
Hmm.
But in a small community, is relative, right? It's not that many
No, yeah,
people.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so, what brought you to South Florida?
Great question. So, as I mentioned earlier, I was in Missouri and I love Missouri, but as you know, winters in the Midwest are not very nice. and I dreaded them. Once I got them in my master's degree, I decided I want to go somewhere, one, closer to home, being Barbados, and two, warmer. And so I had a friend that studied with me in Missouri that was actually from Aventura. And then I also had a friend who lived in Cutler Bay who was from Barbados and an athlete as well. And they both were encouraging me, yes, come to Florida, come to Florida. So to make a long story short, before I graduated in April 2011, I jumped on a flight and I came to check out Florida to see if I would like it. And I haven't looked back ever since. I went back, graduated, packed up my, sold everything I had in my condo, packed up my BMW, got into a U-Haul, and I drove 24 and a half hours to come here to Florida. Yeah.
Wow.
From Missouri.
From Missouri. One stop, Atlanta. That was it.
So
I
this
was
is
on my
interesting because other than climate, Missouri and I would say what you're explaining about Barbados are very, very similar in terms of the Midwest feel. I would say a higher Christian percentage than down here in South Florida. Has that been somewhat of a culture shock to you? And just kind of like, when you look at that, what are your thoughts on South Florida? Obviously, it's nice down here, but in terms of the culture, it seems much different than what you're explaining about Barbados and how structured it is, as well as the religious aspects of it.
Yeah, to be honest with you, Chad, it took me, I wouldn't even say I'm um, completely like over the initial shock I had. Every day I am reminded how different the society I live in is compared to how I was raised.
Hmm.
And initially, I would just, what I had to do for myself personally is just to almost forget the way I was raised. Because it's the simple things that we don't think about that was a shock for me personally. Like, I'm so accustomed going and say hi. If I get into an elevator, good
Hmm.
morning. If I'm opening the door, I open it before the person behind me and allow them to enter first. So it was the small things like that. And then from a Christian perspective, um, anything goes in South Florida, right? I mean, Missouri is a little more conservative. So leaving Barbados and going to Missouri was a shock within itself. But leaving Missouri coming to Florida was like, it was an entirely different um, way of living. Let me just put it like that. The Christian values here and the Christian groups here are so much smaller that you have to go and seek them.
Hmm.
In Barbados, you could run into so many people who are encouraging and they will share their faith. It's not as rampant, I would say, in my opinion, up here. That makes it so much more difficult and challenging. And then just the everyday values people use to make decisions, how they treat each other and stuff like that, their morals, it just looks a little bit different, both
Hmm.
here and in Missouri for sure.
Really? Wow. That's because I guess to me, being from Michigan, is that I feel like down here in South Florida, that it's like I miss the Midwest feel where you can look people in the eyes, say hi, good morning, hey, how's it going? Hey, you want to come over for dinner? And out, it's like well, here I feel like I'm a stranger, or people think I'm
Mm.
trying to gain something from them, and it's really difficult. But I also feel like I always have to kind of keep my eyes peeled and watch my surroundings to see who I'm around, and then who's trying to influence me with whatever that might be. And I've talked a little bit on this podcast about the things that we see, the things that we hear, and how that can really impact our minds. So for someone like you who's had such a strong Christian background, I guess, how do you maybe put up barriers or walls to just try to stay in a zone to where you're not being influenced? Or for me, it's even it's not that I don't I mean struggling to stay influenced, but I just like sometimes I'm just like I don't want to be around this nonsense, like
So
trying to just stay away from it, you know what I mean?
absolutely, and that's a great question. One of the things that I've found extremely helpful is that my wife is a Jehovah Witness, and even though I have never practiced that particular faith, I do meet with them every single Sunday. I also do a Bible study on Wednesday, because if you don't continue to practice your faith, you're going to fall victim of the worldly things, right? Things that are out there that you don't want to be a part of, and it can suck your energy. You started this podcast by telling me, you were giving me a compliment. I'm always smiling. I'm always smiling because my Savior reminds me how fortunate I am to be able to smile. So sometimes it's the little things like that. Those constant reminders keep us in check. And so the environment and the toxicity that comes with the environment is less damaging if you are in an environment on a weekly basis that can give you renewed strength and renewed energy. And that's very important in your faith, right? Because without that, you can get sucked in, you can get roped in, and it's a very hard road. And we all know by praying we're able to communicate with God, and he would answer our prayers, but we always have to feed our soul and our mind with the thoughts that make us happy. It's very, very important. And it's very important not to succumb to negative thoughts. And in our society, we're surrounded by so many negative thoughts that we have to put these little things in place to remain positive. It's an ongoing process, but it's very, very important that you have that group, that source, that place to go to remain the person that you're destined to be, and not fall victim to society. It's
And
very
before the
important.
podcast started, you talked about you're competing to be a bodybuilder. And so with that mentality, there's a lot of things that have to go right. One with your nutrition, one with your program, your training, your exercise, your nutrition. So things really have to get really, really perfect. And when they're not, sometimes it can be easy to get in that negative mindset, especially when it's with athletics, right? You're trying to work as hard as possible, and you're like, Chad, okay, what was it that you didn't do? And sometimes you start beating yourself up. So for you, being in the gym, being what you're doing, what are the positive things that maybe you're telling yourself on a daily basis to stay in that mindset to continue? I think a lot of it is about giving ourselves grace, but also telling us, being confident in ourselves and speaking good words to ourselves. Just if I was speaking to you, I'd be like, hey, Darren, dude, I love your smile, I love your energy. That's important to say to ourselves, because there's not people aren't always going to be there to say those things to it, and we can't expect that to come from people all the time.
Yeah. Well, excellent point, Chad. Excellent point. I think that what happens is we get so enamored with that aspect of bodybuilding, right? The final outcome, how we look, how people perceive us, which, I mean, to some may be very important. But my mindset really is, how good can I be, right? I compare every single time I compete. My personal goal is to be a better version of myself. So I often hear people use that phrase, me versus me, but they use it in a sense where it doesn't really resonate to me, because if it's you versus you shouldn't be looking at others. And that's where I think that the doubt and questioning what you're doing, and even your times of feeling low, disappointment, depression, often comes from a place of comparison, you know? I don't get into that habit of comparing myself with any person else. And I find great joy in lifting other people up. Just because I compete doesn't mean that I should shelter myself. I should separate myself from other people. I see this so often in the bodybuilding community. We think that to reach a goal, to be on a certain level, we have to have a typical demeanor that says, uh, here I am, I'm this, that, I'm that guy in the room. When that is something that is very prevalent, obviously, in the bodybuilding industry. So for me personally, I make it a daily habit. I don't care what I'm doing, how busy I am. If somebody asks me a question related to fitness, I try to help. I try to be present. And even if I'm not feeling 100%, because we do have our highs and lows physically in bodybuilding, but what happens is, in bodybuilding, most people develop this hard shell. I like to describe it as a shell. And they think that by sharing information, only they themselves can remain in this shell, and other people are looking at you as different. You could be a person that shares information and knowledge and loving and have your faith, a good father, a good friend, a good family member, and do all the above. You could still be very successful at the sport, but your approach comes from the mind. So if you develop that attitude that you need to be in this bubble, that you need to be in this shell to protect yourself from everybody else because you have this information that nobody else can get for you to be a winner, and that type of mindset, which I hear very often, then it's not going to, you're not going to be very happy for very long.
Hmm.
Because when you start to alienate these people around you, your loved ones, they're the people that actually matter the most. Because God bless me, but someday I'll get up and physically I may not be able to do bodybuilding. So in my list of priorities, bodybuilding isn't very high.
Hmm.
And I know it may sound funny because I've been able to excel on the national level, but my mindset is, how important is that to me in the grand scheme of things? You see what I mean?
Hmm.
It's not very important in terms of my priorities. If somebody were to ask me randomly, what do I want to accomplish in the next 2 to 5 years? Bodybuilding wouldn't even be in the conversation. So I think it's very important to really acknowledge what bodybuilding is. It is enhancing the physique and working towards a goal. And I don't want to diminish that because that's very important. But what I'm saying is that it shouldn't be your number one priority and focus every day, all day. It takes a joy and fun for not only yourself, but the people around you out of it. Is a very selfish approach that's very common in the industry, but it's not healthy at all,
Hmm.
physically, spiritually, or mentally. It's just not a healthy approach.
I know you were saying it's not in your 2 to 5 year goal range. I thinking of bodybuilding. That's not even in that realm. And I think so often we perceive people's jobs as pretty much them. Like that's their personality. That's, oh, what do you do? It's people think of what they do for work. And you said that, and I guess I just want to know what is in your 2 to 5 year? Like what are some hobbies you want to take up? What are just as a person, what do you want to improve on in 2 to 5 years?
Well, absolutely. Great question, Jake. So I want to be a stronger Christian in 2 to 5 years. I want to draw closer to Jehovah God. So I want to have a stronger relationship. Two, I want to be able to travel with my family.
Hmm.
I want to reach a certain level financially that I just had a baby with my wife. He's 7 months old.
Oh, wow.
And
Congrats.
yes, thank you. And so that he's very high on my priorities. After my faith is my family and growing with my family and being able to, there's certain things I want to accomplish. I want him to have that I was not privileged to have at
Hmm.
his age,
Right.
so that's very high on my priorities. And I want to learn Spanish. My wife is Hispanic, and I want my child to speak both. Like, I want him to be bilingual, so I
Hmm.
have to play my part. Those are important. Those are the main three that come to mind straight off the bat.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, thank you.
So one of the things that I really appreciated what you shared there, Darren, has to do with happiness and how that gets revealed. And I think one of the main points in doing that is that when we're going through life is the mindset of we only compete with ourselves, whether it's in sports, whether it's in work, whether it's in our marriage or with our partners or whoever it might be. If we stay focused on Chad being the best version of Chad that he can possibly be, it removes the jealousy of how many home runs Shohei Otani hit yesterday versus how many I'm trying to hit, or Jay Cutler or the new kid on the block, being the best bodybuilder. It's like, hey, Darren's doing the absolute best that Darren knows how to do, and that energy continues to be exerted out of me and you because I'm not worried about what everybody else is doing because I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm here to be able to open the doors and to be able to smile because I'm happy with what I'm doing. Now, if I've been not staying strict to my diet or anything like that, then maybe, hey, like I got to kick myself in the butt and say, hey, dude, like what are your goals? What are your priorities? What are you doing? But I think that's so important. It's a concept that's very easy to just get lost in, especially down here in South Florida, when you can see the materialism of a Ferrari driving by every single day, or going to a gym where people are just like, there's fitness and there's beautiful people all over the place. Coming back to your faith, is that you've I think we both chose a very difficult area to put ourselves in, from this type of belief system inside the South Florida gyms, and just what people wear, how they act. And it's just like, and that's where for you, like, I have a hard time really connecting with people down here because of the values and the morals. And it's just really difficult because I'm a perfectionist at heart. And so I have very strict rules and regulations about what I eat, about what I do. And so I just don't move from those things. And it's like, well, I can't give over to the peer pressure, and I don't want to be that. So I guess I'll just kind of go hang out by myself and just try to be the best version of me that I can be. But going back to that, man, there's a lot of happiness that comes from it's just me and the weights, me and the best that I can do, being better today than I was yesterday, and being better tomorrow than I was today. That's it, man.
Absolutely, so well put, Chad. I think that a lot of people get, again, society, right? What does society want us to believe? What are we teaching each other? And it's almost not cool to be different, right? People look at you strange when you don't give in to what's popular. You go to the gym and they think everybody should be dressed alike. Or my biggest thing is the guys who have good physiques looking down on the others who don't. And different, and just because you are somewhere in life, or you're heading in a direction that is very important to you, doesn't mean that everybody perceives it as such. You have to be very, very, in my opinion, they always say, not to compare yourself with other people, because you will always fall short. That is very true. That's
Mhm.
why I shared with you guys, it's always me versus me. Because if I compare myself to the man I was yesterday, I'm in a much healthier, wholesome place to make progress than I am for a person that I'll never be like. And for that reason, you always have to set your limits, your goals, your aspirations around what you have in mind. It's very, very important. That's why when Jay asked me without any hesitation, I answered, what do I want 2 to 5 years? If you don't have that embedded in your thoughts, you're going to look at what other people are doing in the next 2 to 5 years. They're going to determine what you want in your life, and that's the problem with society. We often, and social media influences us in such a way. There are trends that come and go, and you may get derailed based on a trend. But if you have a game plan, you're not derailed. You wake up every day to fulfill that game plan to the best of your abilities. And with that journey comes lots of joy, because you have these little victories within that goal, right? Like if I want to learn Spanish in a year's time, I got to get started, right? And then I celebrate that. And then when I can finally say a phrase in Spanish, that's another celebration. That's reason or cause to smile. So when we set these little goals for ourselves within the big goal, we find joy within that. And it's much better than comparing ourselves to what other people are doing. Because let's be honest, guys will always be better looking, richer, drive nicer cars, travel more. Whatever area you're looking at, whatever you aspire, whatever gets you on social media, or forming conversations in circles, whatever that is, there's always another level to that. So that can be your standard, because you would always be chasing something else versus something that is in writing, that's tangible, that you can go and get. Because the best version of Chad may be much better than Darren. We don't know that. But if you're chasing Darren, you might also be limited your ability, your own personal ability to be the best version of Chad. That's another reason why you always stay in your own lane. And success for you should always be based on what you want to achieve in life, not other people. That's not important.
And when you think about like, you're 100% right about creating goals that are attainable for you, not for someone else, not for Michael Jordan, not for
Right.
anybody else, but Chad. And when you think about learning Spanish, Darren, I know you talked about after a year, are you breaking it up into small, minute like day-to-day action goals to where like today you're listening to Pimsleur for 5 minutes and then tomorrow 10 minutes, or so it's very close to almost like your training program to where I know that I have to do bench press today, I have to do 5 sets, I have to do this rep break, and so you're breaking it down. And that's what, that's what's so awesome about fitness, is that it's been developed so that we know exactly what we have to do to get the results, where in some things in life, whether it's trying to make this amount of money, it's an unknown that we don't know, but we can still say, try to make these small actionable items and see if they pan out. Where that's what I love about fitness, is that you're going to get the results if you put in the work and you do it with some type of trainer or something who's going to help you with the nutrition. Like, if you're not going to eat sugar, if you're not going to get alcohol, if you're going to give up those things and you're going to count your macros, you're going to lose weight, you're going to get stronger, you're going to get bigger like Darren is. Every time I see you, you're bigger. Like today, your muscles hardly fit on the camera screen because you're just getting so big, dude. It's just awesome. But you figured out that system and what it does and how it works. It's like,
Yes. And Chad, in harmony with what you're saying, I love that point. That's a very rich point. I think about life like this, right? If if you can go to the gym consistently, and what you're working towards, whatever image that is you're working towards, you do not see it manifest on a daily basis. You have to trust a process that by going every single time and showing up every single time, the end result will be what you envision in your head. So when you're trying to fulfill any goal, you can apply that same principle. If I want to learn Spanish in a year, the difference between getting a physique, losing weight, whatever your physical goal is, the difference between that and something like learning Spanish is that every single day in that process, I wanted to learn Spanish. I can see through specific methods of learning, I can see the progress. So I don't have to wait to the end to know I'm going to be fluent, because I'm consistently adding words to my vocabulary, trying to put phrases together. And so if you can conquer a goal that's going to manifest that you can see on a daily basis, those goals like learning Spanish should come easier to you. And that's all I do. Because the way I want to look in the next 12 weeks didn't start yesterday. When I stepped off stage August 11th, 2024, I had envisioned this upcoming competition. So that was one of these things that I just had to trust the process. I had to complete everything required in the process and hope that at the end of the process, the goal will be met. Versus Spanish being, you can log on to the system, you can do daily tasks. There's a book where you can increase your vocabulary, learn tenses. I can speak to my wife in Spanish. Yeah, so I use the tools around me on a daily basis to accomplish one goal, and I use the mental process to get to where I want in another goal. But they can be applied.
and for you, you spoke about not competing with anybody but ourselves. What role does a support group play in this process for you, whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's learning Spanish? Because I think that that's one thing that gets overlooked oftentimes in today's day and age. There's this idea that it's just like, oh, you just go get it and you go. It's like, you have to have people there that are willing to support you and cheer you on. Like, there's no better feeling than have a cheerleader. Obviously, maybe not everybody's going to be able to have that, but what role has that played in your approach to life? I think also in the Christian faith, like you were sharing, is that in order to stay sound in that, we have to have other people that we're surrounded with that have that same beliefs, who are helping to cheer us on, because there's hard times. And when those hard times happen, it can be so easy mentally to try to lose focus on maybe our beliefs. It's like, oh, like, and then you slip away, and then
Yeah.
you're gone. And so, like, could you just share like what that means to you in terms of the support group, you and your wife, like how you guys are just working together, supporting each other, and doing that together as a team?
Yeah, that is incredible. I often tell people without the support, nothing is possible, because that support group allows you, when everything is not going right, when you have doubts about the process that I just described, when self-pity creeps in, depression creeps in, when life happens, basically, right? The support group are the ones who are there regardless of whatever version of Chad is in front of them. That's how important your group is. And you always have to nourish that group and build those relationships. And even with those, you have to prioritize them as well, right? Because I have a group of brothers in the Christian congregation that are always looking out for me. They're always pulling me aside and reminding me. They're always uplifting me. And I try to do the same. I have my family that are in Barbados. A week doesn't go by without speaking to them. My mom and dad and I are always on three-way, reminding each other about love and the way we were raised and what we've been able to, as a family, accomplish. And then home, every day I get to come home to a beautiful 7 month baby and a wife who loves me to death. So those support groups take me from being average to up here. And anytime you forget that support, you're going to fall because that's what support is. It uplifts you. That's what support is. So without the support, it doesn't matter how high you go. If you don't have the right support, you're going to fall right back down at some point
Hmm.
because of the highs and lows of life. Every day is not a day to win. Every day is not the best version of ourselves. Every job we go for, we don't get. The car we drive, we may not like. Where we are in our own physical journey may not manifest quick enough. And in those times of doubt, in those times when things aren't going right, it's your support group that, regardless of where you are, reminds you it's going to be okay.
Hmm.
And that's the ongoing moral support that you need consistently to navigate through, these hard roads that life has to offer. So the support group is detrimental to your progress. It is so important, so important.
And I think, Jake, that's something that you've shared previously is with our dad, is that dad was someone who just didn't allow us to have any limitations on life. I wanted to play professional baseball. And no matter how asinine that sound, how ridiculous it might have been, when you look at how many people actually play Major League Baseball versus going to college, getting a good degree, becoming a doctor, and that broader scope of things, my dad said, if that's what you want to do, you got to figure out how to go do it. There's a process that you can. And I think it was essentially, hey, maybe I can, maybe I can't. But and today I've just always taken that mindset as like, I can do it. Maybe I won't reach that goal ultimately, but I can reach optimal performance for what Chad looks like. And what last week we had two twins on. And what was amazing is that they could look inside of each other because they have almost the identical genes, right? So if one twin is going to the gym and he's working out and he's tweaking his nutrition, it's cool because the other twin says, well, I can definitely do that. I can get those results. Whereas like me and you, we don't have that twin who can
Yeah.
show us what perfectionist or what optimum health, looks like. Was that a role that your parents both played just in your growing up where there were really no limitations? It's like, Darren, the world is yours. Go do whatever you want and just work hard and continue to have goals and take actionable items.
Actually, in my case, is a little bit different, Chad, because my dad came from a military background, very disciplined man, and my mom was very loving, came from the healthcare industry, right? And what happened is they took separate paths to get where they were. And my dad wanted so bad for his kids, me and my two brothers, to avoid the mistakes he made, that he was very hard on us. And so from a very young age, some of the things that I like to do, he didn't encourage. Like I love to draw. And he would always ask me, well, what kind of career could you have drawing? Those type of things. But what happened was as I evolved and I learned, and I left home very early. I got a scholarship and I was on my own. And I really had to, I've always had a good relationship with my parents, and I really had to sit them down and share with them that the way they were thinking, even though they came from a good place, in today's world, in today's society, the opportunities we have are so much more than what they had. when my parents were growing up, maybe it was hard for somebody with our background to be an artist. Maybe, without a doubt, you can make money on social media. But times have changed and we constantly evolve. Even when my dad, who liked bodybuilding back in the day, there weren't many very successful people in his circle. So he didn't see bodybuilding as something that you could be successful at. And his version of success looked different to mine. But again, as I got done with college, I stayed in my faith. My mom is in faith. My dad isn't. So we had to really encourage him to look at life differently. So I had a slightly different experience to you guys. My dad didn't give me the reins and say, go conquer the world. He wanted to streamline it in his own way, you know? And so I had to make my own way and then just tap back and kind of say, you know what, Pops, well, these opportunities do lie today and times are different. And I actually had to encourage him to use technology and to come out of his way of thinking to evolve more as a person, and he thanks me for it every single time we speak. But that was my heartfelt experience I had changing the mentality that my dad had specifically, when it came to what's out there you can go and get. He always set limitations on those for us.
So it almost sounds like your parents were two different characters, and that
Right.
your dad, even though he was very, very strict, that discipline, I'm sure, played a huge role in how successful you were with an athlete, where it's like, hey, Darren, like, you weren't going out messing around or anything. You was that super high focused, attuned with yourself, that really helped you to be that. And where your mom was able to be, I think, maybe the more loving, kind smile that we see today in Darren. And what your religion. Now, you brought up the aspect of being a Christian. Was there a specific time in your life that just really brightened up your, I guess, your mind of, okay, this is the faith that I want to be? Was there something that happened, or were you just always grounded in the faith to the point where it's just always felt natural to you?
Well, from a very young age, I was going to church, me and my brothers, and we had a strong faith at a young age. But what happened was once I went to Missouri, um, a lot of things started to happen to me that I knew for sure this is the hand of God. A lot of bad things were happening around me, and I would always be protected. I graduated with honors, I excel athletically. When people were getting hurt, I remained healthy. Just the hand of God consistently in my life elevated my love and my devotion to Him. Really, and I always had that background. You get up, you pray. When you speak to people, you mention God. But the level that I took it to a level where I would do anything. I would do if I had to make a decision, I would consult. I would pray about it. I really did put Him first, and it's through His grace and His mercy that allowed me to elevate to that level. He did just so many amazing things happening. There was a time when I probably had $40 in my account. I was just building my credit. I didn't have anywhere to live. I wasn't driving a car. And within a 4-month period of time, I had a very nice car, and I lived in one of the most the one of the best high rises in St. Louis, right? And I saw him firsthand put his arms around me. My family was millions of miles away and protected me. Yeah. And that humbled me to a point where it was like, well, if he can do this for me and I'm not giving him the glory, what if I live my life giving him the glory? And I haven't looked back. And that was a real cold winter day in 2006. And I haven't looked back ever since. I try to include him in my decisions. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. But there's not a day that goes by that I don't thank him. Every single day, every single opportunity.
Wow.
Because it's important in our journey.
And when you think about people out there who may be missing this in their life, they may not understand what that means or what it feels like. And I think sometimes it can just be really difficult, and it can feel almost mystical if you don't come up in this type of an upbringing. Like, first and foremost, I think it's our actions of how we represent ourselves on a daily basis. Everything we've already talked about is the smiles that we offer, is the gestures that we have. How our actions speak much louder than words, and how we treat each other, smiling at the gym, not downgrading people at the gym who may not be in as good a shape as someone else, or maybe they're performing an exercise wrong or anything like that. It's like, I'm happy and I'm excited when the gym's busy because I know every single one of those people there is trying to better themselves. And that's powerful, man. I love it when the gym is absolutely packed to the gills because each one of those people is there doing the exact same I'm trying to do. And that's be better today than I was yesterday and like improve my life.
Absolutely.
So
I,
I guess
I,
on that, the question is like, what do you say to the people who might feel lost or like, I guess sometimes I think the theory is you don't want to be too religious and turn people off because that's a concept where you can have where you're trying to push things on people too much and it's just like it just feels it's hard. What are your thoughts?
I, well, when I'm in a situation to offer advice to people, the first thing I encourage them to do is to find their purpose. Because everybody has a purpose, but not everybody is at a stage in their life where they realize that. If you get up every single day and all you're doing is existing, you haven't found your purpose. And that's why, if for you to truly be happy, you have to be excelling towards your purpose. And that's a joy in life versus existing. And it's like zombies. It's like I see a lot of people who are in the gym that may not have a goal. And I'm not saying the gym has to be your purpose.
Mhm.
The gym might be a tool to help you feel better about yourself. But you have to establish your purpose. Why are you here? And what are you going to do with the gifts God gives you while you're here? And you encourage people to use those gifts. And if you establish why you're here and the gifts you have, and you get to use them every single day, you're going to find joy in just doing that. There's some people who sell, let's say they sell cars, and they're in the best mood. You ever run into a salesman, always excited, loves his job, and then I sit back and I tell myself, well, I can do that. But that is absolutely his purpose. That's what he wants to do. That's what he gets up every single day excited about. And we shouldn't go around. And that's what my dad did for many years to me. He tried to put his purpose on me.
Hmm.
But once I found my purpose, I kind of shared it with him. And I think that's where it would start. Chad, before I even have a conversation about God and my faith, because a lot of people are like that, what you described, right? They're neither here or there. So it's one of those situations where through conversation and encouragement, you want them to come to you and wonder, well, why is this guy always in a good mood? And they'll take a closer look. They want to examine your principles, what you live by. And then that gives you an opportunity to then share your faith. But I would start by asking them just generally what your purpose is. They're going to be passionate about something, whether it's cars, whether it's girls, whether it's making money, whether it's material things. I find that very often, and then you can kind of expand on it a little bit because even if your goal in life is to get money, right? To be very wealthy, to travel a lot, even if that is your goal, that is not your purpose. There's a difference. Those are just things that God put in this world for us to be able to enjoy. But if you go about those things with a sense of humility, what you're going to find out is that's not your purpose. Now, if you're well off financially and you're building schools or helping the hungry, that may be your purpose. But the money, the financial gain cannot be your purpose. God doesn't create us to be rich.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. God creates us to use our wealth to help people, and that would be your purpose.
Hmm.
No, and that's an amazing thing because when you start asking people their purpose, and maybe they come out with maybe the more bland ideas. I want to be wealthy. When you say, what is that wealth going to bring you? Maybe it's the freedom of time. Maybe it's the ability to be able to help their family that's struggling. And that's where you keep asking, well, what's that going to help you? And then you can get to that true, absolute purpose that actually makes someone tick and what. And I think that's important. Like, when you look at a career, right, there's a lot of people who do something. It doesn't seem like they enjoy what they're doing, but
Yeah.
it's what that career brings them. Like some people like to go on vacations and they're working at a job that gives them 2 months vacation. That's why they're there, because they enjoy spending their time with their family, or they only have to work 40 hours a week and that they get to go home and be at all their kids' games. For you, what would you say is your purpose?
So my purpose is to, at this stage in my life, to give back to the bodybuilding community, right? And I do that through my job. My purpose is every single day I have a platform to guide people in a direction or that I wish I had at their particular stage. You see what I mean? Because I had to learn through trial and error. So I'm trying to save people both money, time, and protect their health through my experience. And that's my purpose right now. Yeah.
That's interesting. When I moved down here to South Florida, I kept
Hmm.
seeing, I was entranced by all the nice cars and I wanted to be a millionaire. And then I decided, oh, well, there's people that are billionaires. I could go do that. And then I really started thinking and started feeling the things that bring me happiness. And I was like, you know what? I want to be a dad because kids bring me a lot of laughter and a lot of value. And number two, each and every day, I want to be able to make people laugh and put a smile on people's faces. And I realized that's my purpose. And this podcast for me is that I love learning about people. I absolutely love learning when it comes to people and being able to hear their passions and see the excitement in their voice. Like that's my purpose, is to be able to just be someone who knows how to ask questions and knows how to listen, and being able to dive into and seeing like that with people. Like it's just my purpose. Like Jake, what about for you? Like, what's your purpose? Have you thought about that or done much of a deep dive into it?
Um, I've thought about it before, and I don't know. I just like to create, and I don't know. I just like the feeling of helping people any way possible. Just, I don't know, finding all the little ways to just help people.
And growing a sweet mustache?
Yeah, that's just a side goal, side hustle.
That's just your sexy face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Jake, those were all the questions I had for Darren. Did you have any more questions? Is there anything else you wanted to ask?
So I guess you were saying that you wanted to give back to the bodybuilding community. In that, I know that you, as a job, you help train people. Do you specifically train people who want to become bodybuilders, or just people who want to be physically fit and are doing it for that?
Off lifestyle, and I actually have two people that are going to be competing in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
So I do both. Pardon me 1 minute. Sorry, guys.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
No,
One.
Bob. There's his baby.
Oh, wow.
Here we go.
This is the first time we've had someone under the age of 18 on the podcast, so
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah.
Say hi, guys. Say hi.
Hello. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
7 months.
He's 7 months.
Wow.
Big boy.
That's a big baby.
That's a big boy. Yeah.
Are you training him already?
Oh yeah. His mom is very much into fitness, so
Oh, yeah.
he's a strong little guy already. Real strong guy.
So like
Inquisitive.
what are his like sets and rest range? Did he do chest today, or what did you have him doing?
Well, what he does is that he turns from his back to his tummy,
Oh.
and then he has tummy time for 20 minutes, and he could do half push-ups and 15
Oh,
of them,
wow.
and his mom holds his hands and he can squat. So look at these legs.
And his nutrition intake, what's that look like? Like, how do you guys split up the macros? Is it very dairy intensive, or?
No, it's 80% protein, 10% fats, 10% carbs.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, he's doing pretty good. But Jay, you asked a very interesting question, and I do help other people, because one of the things that I didn't want to do when I left corporate America, I was a banker for 7 years, And in 2020, I left in the middle, well, the beginning of the pandemic, really. And I came back to fitness. And I said, to fulfill my purpose, I really, really have to help people do what I do specifically, not just lifetime people, but people who plan to compete. Teach them how to do it in a healthy way, make it in as such that they are mentally enjoying it, and more importantly, when I get done with them, they can share it with other people.
Hmm.
And I kind of like make my little splash in the bodybuilding community in a very small way. But that's my contribution because very often when I run into bodybuilders and I train, I've run into you, right, Chad, in Redcon gym. I train in Redcon because I live in Pompano. And the mindset of some of the people there, especially the heavy bodybuilders, is what brought me back to the fitness industry. A lot of people are to themselves and they're not open and willing to share information. There's no harm in sharing. And that's specifically, Jay, why I came back and what I enjoy doing. Just helping people fill in those gaps, those answering those questions that nobody wants to answer.
Hmm.
And just be genuine with the small audience I have.
Wow.
That's so true too. So I'm in property management, leasing, and like my leasing team, I'm like sharing all the information about sales, and they're like, Chad, like, why are you sharing all this? Like nobody else has ever shared this. Is big because I don't want to be in this position, guys. Like I'm trying to be the best that I can be. I want you to be the best that you can be. And if you get so good where you're taking my position, it's like that's mean that this job wasn't for me, and I got to go find something else. But I'm not going to keep information from my team and from the company or really because this is what it's about. It's about sharing information, being able to learn from each other, encouraging each other, and being the best versions of ourselves. I think that's what this whole podcast has been about, Darren. Like you made a great share of that with we only compete with ourselves, and it's like it's so true. It's
Yeah.
I think from a religious perspective, it's exactly what God expects of us to do the best that we can possibly do for ourselves and for him, and to stay very, very focused on him, and then looking deep inside ourselves. It's like self-retrospection, right? Looking at the sin inside of ourselves and ridding that, and then taking it on another level. Well, okay, maybe it's not sin, but it's our nutrition, and how can I be better? And how can I be better at all aspects of life? And that's what it's about.
Absolutely, Chad. Absolutely. And by you guys providing such a platform, you're giving your audience an opportunity to see a different perspective because I can tell you one thing about people in Florida. The ones who travel are a lot more cultured to those who have not. I see a massive difference between those two people. And so with podcasts, what you're hearing is different views from people with different backgrounds. And it allows us it challenges the way we think sometimes, right? Things that never cross. And that's why another big part of being happy. And my grandmother will always tell me, if you cannot be grateful for what you have, be grateful for what you have not lost. Because we walk around saying, I wish I had this, I wish I had that, I miss this opportunity, I miss that. But look at what you have. It starts with life. You know what I mean? You have so much to be thankful for that if you dwell on what you don't have, you're gonna be stealing your own joy. Right?
That's so true, man. I have siblings that are here laughing, getting into enjoy a podcast at 40 years old. I feel better than I did at 30. I gave up alcohol a couple of years ago. I gave up sugar about a year and a half ago. And it's just like, I'm grateful for like my health, like in my ability to be able to just laugh, that no matter what it is I can do, I know it doesn't cost any money to go out there and find a group of people. Maybe it's back in Michigan, maybe it's not here in South Florida, but I can find people who will go laugh. A couple of years ago, I went back home, and my brothers and I, we like laughing, so we always placed bets, and we went out to the bowling alley, and whoever lost had to walk home. Well, me and Jake ended up being the losers of that, and we walked home. But we made it an adventure from our brothers, because they were trying to like watch us to make sure we weren't getting an Uber or anything like that. And so we ran through cornfields. But it's laughter, creating stories. like if I think about my best memories, it's not so much a material item, it's not so much a restaurant that I went to,
Right.
but it was the people that I was with,
Yeah.
and the things that we did, and that's what's special in life, man.
Amen. Amen. So true. So true. I wish it's so warming to hear a different perspective. Because you see, what you're sharing with me, I hear so often when I'm back home in the islands, but it's not very common to hear it up here. And it's funny, I have about 5 clients from Michigan, and 3 of them are from Lansing. And let me tell you, it just seems there's something good in the water up there because you guys are amazing. There's, I promise you, all 5 of them are females, but they're from that area. Oh, amazing, amazing. So humble. Very successful people here in South Florida, but you won't believe it. Two
That's
of them,
interesting. I don't meet any people from Michigan here, but everybody says there's people from Michigan down here, and I'm like, oh, I need to meet these people because I was like, I don't see them anywhere.
have to introduce you. I'm gonna have to introduce you. Very good people. Very good people.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it sounds like that Midwest mindset, that small town living, where you don't grow up with much, you don't grow up with all these things that you can attain, and it's just like, hey, we're gonna enjoy this cold weather. We got 6 months of cold weather, so we better figure out how to make the best of it. And
Yeah.
maybe that's throwing snowballs or putting a great big trash barrel behind a car and pulling it down the street. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You see, when you come from a small town too, and everybody knows each other, you want to do right by people. And it's generally when you live in a small town and you know people, you're warmer towards them. In a big city, people have the mentality that they may never see you again. So they treat you like garbage. If you know within your heart you're going to see a person every single day, you're more inclined to be nice to them. It's just this big city mentality, man. Places like Miami, even New York City, people could be so cold, and it's the basic things that it doesn't cost you a thing to be friendly, to be nice, to say hi, just do right, But it's so crazy, man.
that's
But
a
I
really good
mean,
point. I'd never really thought about that, where in a big city like Miami, you can hide. You can be
yeah,
scrupulous. You can be a scammer. You can
yeah,
go and live an immoral life. You can do a lot of things. In a small town, there's going to be people that
no,
know, and they're probably going to talk about it. And I think this goes back to, again, the religious mindset is that if you think about each and every day that there's someone there watching you, just like you're in that small town, there's eyes on you every single day. That's a standard of life that you have to live
no,
if you want to
yes,
be able to
yeah,
have fulfillment and peace.
absolutely. I guess that's one of the advantages from coming from a small town, or if you live in a city that's small, it's very good when everybody knows everybody because you want to uphold the good name you have. You don't want to you don't want to be that guy that's talked about all through your small town for the wrong reasons. Um, and I generally think people from the Midwest though have a greater perspective and their views are more diverse. To be honest with you, and in terms of material things, they come across as less materialistic. In the experiences that I have had, Midwest people are so much more chill, so much
That's
more diverse.
interesting because most people from the Midwest, maybe they
Yeah,
have their diverse mindsets, but we don't travel very much. Like you're talking about world
right,
travelers,
right.
and like it's like we go to Indiana, we go down to we go down to Florida maybe for spring break, but we don't go international traveling. Like the people down here in South Florida, I'm just like, you've been where? Oh, I've been to 13 countries. I was like, I
Right.
haven't. I've just been around the U.S. Like, and I have a struggle getting around this, and so that's interesting that people from the Midwest are diverse. I think it's in their ability to think, and just the open mindedness. But when you have a strong moral compass and you have specific
Yeah.
standards, you're not always looking around for other options or looking because it's like, I know what the truth is and I hold to it. And then everything else around life, I just react to it. And that's it.
Yeah, you know what it is too, Chad? Very great, very, very good point. But the larger the city, the more temptation you have as well. When you're in a small town, think about the things you did as a kid to have fun. what was enjoyable. Family time is important. You get lost in big cities. You're competing with so many activities, both good and bad. So it's easier to get lost in a big town or a city than it is in a small one. I think that contributes as well. When you don't have a lot of things to do, you value family time so much more because that's the thing to do. In a big city, when you're miles and miles away from your brother and your mother and this and that, it looks completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Completely different.
No, that's so true, man. I've always thought about that. It's like, okay, tomorrow I have the day off. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the gym, and then am I gonna go golfing? Am I gonna go
Right,
drive the motorcycle? Am I gonna go to the beach? Am I gonna go play volleyball? Am I gonna go play
right,
pickleball? And it's just like all these options, and I'm just like overwhelmed. Whereas in
right.
Michigan, it's still probably what 30 degrees out, Jake. So there's like
Correct.
It was
three
in
or
the
four
70s
things that you can
today.
go. What?
It was in
Right.
the 70s today.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
Michigan's stepping its game up.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it was
In
also
the middle.
raining though.
Oh yeah. So in the middle of winter, half of the things you just mentioned aren't even possible.
Right.
So it drastically restricts your options, right? So then you may hang out with the boys and just do things that are more wholesome, you know?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so for us, it was playing board games. And then this past winter, all my brothers and sisters, we got an Oculus headset. And so
Yeah,
on Sundays, we play miniature golf together where we're all in our different houses, but we're all super close and connected. So it was a way for us to be, for them, they were super cold and just kind of miserable, where it was like a time for us to be able to enjoy and have a good laughs, man.
yeah. You
Which
know what's
community?
fun? It's funny during the pandemic, they said the United States of America experienced the highest levels of depression. And then further studies taught us that part of the depression was because people in Florida didn't have anything to do.
Hmm.
They couldn't exist when you take all those things that people find to do here away from them. They couldn't. They couldn't get creative in their groups and find entertainment because their entertainment had to be, and it, it's proven that when you come from a background that you do a lot of family activities and you pass that trade on as an adult, those type of environments are the best environments, both mentally and physically, for an individual. Because these are the people that are more connected to God, and they know they have a higher being because they don't get lost in society thinking that money and all these material things are responsible for where they are. They know where they come from, and they're humble enough to recognize it and stay in that place. So it's just interesting to hear a different perspective, but it kind of mirrors the way I think every single day.
Yeah, 100%. Staying grounded, creating stability. Yeah.
It's,
I
it's
mean,
important.
it's awesome. We're talking about happiness, and it seems like you have a little baby that stays pretty happy, man.
Yeah.
Case in point, right? That's
Yeah.
all. Look at it. He's looking at everything and saying, smiling like that.
Yeah.
Let him see your face, big boy. Say, yeah, he stays happy. He's reminded how much he's loved. And we do things, as a family. He goes to church every Sunday and Saturday, Bible study. So he's pretty active. You teach him from young.
Hmm.
That's awesome. Jake, do you have any more questions?
Nope, I don't have any more.
All right. Darren, do
Okay.
you have anything else you want to share? Any promotions for yourself? Any websites? Anything you want to share just to end out the podcast?
I just want to share this with the audience. Anybody out there that's needs some encouragement, and it doesn't have to be fitness related, because I've been in business, I've traveled a lot. But if it is in fitness and you do need any advice, feel free to reach out. I would be more than happy to share my Instagram handle with you guys. Is dbeast underscore swag. That's D and beast underscore swag. SWAGG. Just send me a message. I like meeting up with people. I like encouraging them. I like giving out free sessions. as long as it gets you started towards your purpose, and I think that conversation can help, I'm here for it, guys. I'm all about that. I like how you guys are enriching lives. Continue to do this podcast. I've learned a lot. And thank you for the opportunity to share with you guys and with your audience part of my story and the way I was raised. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Darren, thank you so much for being on, sharing your story, showing your what motivates you, what inspires you, sharing from the growing up in Barbados, what that looked like, and just you're a beautiful human being, man. Being able to see the smile on your face, being able to see the joy in your son, and how he's being able to enjoy his father, and just your story, man. It's so enlightening, and it's such a burst of energy, a ray of sunshine, like I said, just to be able to hear encouraging words and to hear that smile come through this audio, man. We love you, bro, and we really appreciate you being on here and sharing.
Thank you so much, guys. Love, and respect always, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
You too, guys. Take care.
Yeah.
All right. See you, Darren. Thanks, man.
You're welcome, Chad. See you, Jake.
Yeah. See ya.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.